Guys, welcome back to Elise Reads and Speaks. Today I'm going to be talking to you about some of my favorite audiobooks, as well as maybe ones that you shouldn't listen to because they're not so great. So let me take it back to the first episode where I talked about Rebecca Soler. She is a fantastic narrator. She does the narration for all of the Lunar Chronicles, which is a wonderful series that you should listen to if you haven't listened to it already. It's a futuristic take on fairy tales. So I'm not ruining anything by saying that, Cinderella leaves her glass slipper at the ball. But in this, she's a cyborg, and she doesn't leave her glass slipper, she leaves her bionic leg. It's like fun little things like that from fairy tales that you've already heard, but they're kind of tweaked in this whole series, and it's a lot of fun. And Rebecca Soler's narration just takes it that step further. She does a lot of different narrations of books. So for this next one, Caraval, she's also the narrator for. Now, I love this series. My book club would be kicking my butt right now to even be mentioning this series. It was one of those that it was like I was so sure that I was going to that meeting that night and that everybody was going to talk about how much they loved it. And I was so wrong. Okay, but I stand by it. I really like this series. Stephanie Garber kind of talks in a way that paints really vivid pictures in my head with really vivid colors, and I got so into it. I also really like the second book a lot too. So I will say that I know a lot of people that don't like it, but I really do like this series. And if you're into audiobooks, try listening to them because, again, Rebecca Soler, she is fantastic. So when I went to YALLFest, I talked to Marissa Meyer, who's the author for Lunar Chronicles, and Cassandra Clare, who does Mortal Instruments, Infernal Devices, Dark Artifices, and they were at a panel. So I was one of the people that raised my hand, and they called on me to ask a question because I'm a huge nerd, and that's fine. And I asked them if they had any pull in who they used for their narrations in their audiobooks. Now I was surprised that Marissa Meyer, and I will hold up her book again. She's Lunar Chronicles. She said that she didn't even know that her series was being made into audiobooks until they showed up at her doorstep. So it's like she kind of won the lottery of narrators because she got the best one there is. Now, Cassandra Clare said that she was able to give a list of actors or narrators that she liked to whoever's in charge of that to at least put her input in. Now, the thing that really surprises me is that I think they must have looked at her list and chose everyone on it because I hate when a narrator changes with every single book. So I will say that I like this series a lot, The Mortal Instruments. I listened to them and I really enjoyed it. But I hated that I was listening to somebody different every time. I mean, maybe the same narrator would be there for like 2 books and then they would switch after that. But it's just, you get so used to somebody and then they switch it on you that you have to get used to that person as Clary instead of the person that you were just listening to, which is really annoying. And if you listen to them, then you know exactly what I'm saying when I say Steely or Stele. Oh my God, drove me bonkers. Like maybe you should have a meeting before you make your audiobook to make sure that everybody is on the same page with pronunciation. Oh my gosh, it drives me nuts. But moving on, at YALLFest, I also talked to Soman Chainani, and he is the author of the School for Good and Evil. And he asked me what got me into his books. And I said, I happened to listen to them on audiobook and I really enjoyed it. And I loved his response. He said, I couldn't imagine anybody but Polly doing the narration. She's just the first person I had in mind. Now, I don't know if he was telling me what I wanted to hear, but I ate it up because I was like, an author that understands the way that his book should be told and actually picked a good narrator for it is fantastic. Like he said, Polly Lee is the narrator of the School for Good and Evil, and she has so many different voices. His books are fairy tale books too. It's about, these kids that go to this School for Good and Evil, and you're either put in the School for Good or the School for Evil, and you kind of hope to graduate that school and be put into your own fairy tale. So like, for example, the people at the School for Good may be a princess or an animal that helps the princess or the prince. And the people at the School for Evil would be the evil witch or the henchman or something like that. and you leave the school and hope that you have one of those big roles in a big fairy tale. It's a lot of fun. It's actually a Y book instead of a YA, but I highly recommend it, and I loved the narration of it, so definitely give these ones a listen too. So going in a little different direction, 13 Reasons Why. If you're not familiar with this story at all, it's about this girl that leaves behind her, I guess, suicide note on a bunch of cassette tapes. So you're getting a completely different experience if you listen to them instead of reading it. I really enjoyed it because I felt like I was listening to Hannah's notes instead of just reading them on the paper. Like, I felt that I was hearing it the way that it should have been heard. Her story should have been heard. Granted, there's some typical writing in here when Clay is talking to other people. Granted, that's not on the audio tapes that Hannah has. But the times when she's speaking, it's like you're really hearing the words of somebody that's passed away. So it's a different experience if you listen to it rather than read it. So another book that's a different experience is Replica by Lauren Oliver. Now, full disclosure, I did not listen to this one. I read it. So let me show you why. So, front cover, I open it, okay, the words, see how they're normal words on paper. Now watch, okay, gotta close the book, I'm gonna flip it. Oh yes, see, you can read that fine as well. And when you open it, oh, look at that. How does that work when you're flipping a book back and forth? So at Y'all Fest, I actually talked to Lauren Oliver too, and I said, you know, how did you expect your readers to read it? And she said, you know, you can read it any way you want. You could choose one of the girls' stories, read that, you know, all the way through, like halfway, and then flip it, and then read the other story through, okay? So they both meet halfway in the middle. She said, or you can do it the way that I kind of wrote it, you know, back and forth. So you read a chapter, you flip it, and you read the next chapter. So you'd be doing like 1, chapter 2, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 3. And that's the way I read it, and I enjoyed it. I heard from some people in my book club, though, that they really didn't have an option to do that when they were listening to the audiobook. It was just one of the girls' stories, and then you listen to the other girl's story. I don't know if they've made another audiobook in the way that Lauren Oliver wrote it. I hear the second book, which is Ringer, they did do that where it goes back and forth. I don't know with the first book if they did it that way. So just be mindful, if you decide to listen to this one, you're going to be listening to one girl's story and then the next, unless they've done something new with it since the last time I checked. I recommend going back and forth with the chapters because then you're kind of going through the story at the same time instead of hearing one side of the story and then hearing the other side of the story. So, my next one on my list, 3 Dark Crowns. So this one's a little half and half or two. I listened to it and I really liked it, but I've also talked to people that listened to it and they were like, whoa, too many names all at once. I could not take it in. That was not enjoyable. So I think I just really enjoyed the story. It sucked me in. I love everything about this series. I like flew through it. I can't wait for the next one to come out. So when the third book came out, I went back and I've read the physical book, I read the physical second book, and then I listened to the third one. And I will say that I did pick up on things in here and in the second one that I kind of missed when I listened to the audiobooks originally. But it did not take away from my enjoyment of them at all. So I will say be wary with this one too. If you're the type of person that you just can't take in that much information at once, perhaps maybe don't listen to this audiobook and maybe read the physical one. If you're fine listening to stuff like I am, I really enjoyed it, so go right ahead. So my next one on my list, Diviners. So I started listening to this one when I was running a half marathon in New Orleans. And I enjoyed it at first, and then I just got lost. I was like, whoa, what is happening? I don't even know who these characters are anymore, so I stopped. Now, I never DNF anything, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to read this physical book. And plus, I really like some Libba Bray. I read her Gemma Doyle trilogy, and I love that one. I made other people read it because I enjoyed it so much. And I met her at Y'all Fest too, and she is one of the nicest people. So, Libba, I'm going to do you some justice, and I'm going to read your book, and hopefully I'm really going to like it. So like I said, when I listen to audiobooks and I just can't get into it, I go back and I read the physical book. So I did that with Strange the Dreamer because I was lost, and then I read the physical book and I hated it. Man, I hated it. It lost me. And then I did the same thing with Hunter by Mercedes Lackey. Man, I tried that twice. I hated that one too. I'm hoping that I don't hate the Diviners, but who knows what's going to happen. But I really like Libba Bray, so hopefully I like it. So one of the books that I'm listening to right now, I just finished Illuminae, and that's by Amie Kauffman and Kristoff. You know, that is so not my style of book. It's not written like a typical novel. It's really written like a play, I guess. And I loved it. I mean, the presentation with the audiobook was fantastic. I mean, I really got into it. The guy that did the voice for Ezra, oh my gosh, I find him so charming. I have a little book crush right now. And I just started Gemini, I don't know. The second book in the series, okay? I want to say Aunt Jemima, and you know what? That's not it. I think it's Gemini or something. And it's starting off the same way. It's like a full cast audio, and it really sucks you in. And it's kind of fun, the way they do the different voices. It takes place in like this interstellar war, so there's a lot of electronic voices too, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that one. As far as a book that I do not have a physical book of to show you the copy of, maybe I'll just put a picture right in the center. The Raven Boys. You know, people love that series, and I'll tell you, that's probably the worst book that I've listened to, which is shocking because it's voiced by a good actor. Will Patton is the actor that voices that, and he was in Remember the Titans, Armageddon. I mean, he's a good actor, and man, that narration was atrocious. His voice was breathy. He didn't give different voices to his characters. I was so lost, and so many people love this book that I really need to go back and read the physical one because, man, it was bad, man. It was bad. It kind of makes me angry when something is so bad and it's like so hyped up, but no, it's bad. But you know what? That brings me back to my original girl, Rebecca Soler. So I said that she does the Lunar Chronicles. She did Caraval. She's also done Sadie, which is a great audiobook by, the author is Courtney Summers, and you should listen to it because it's written as a podcast. So I can't imagine that it has the same flavor that it does when you're listening to it as opposed to reading it. You know, reading a podcast is much different than listening to it, and it's a full cast, even though she's like the main voice of it, but you really get taken into this like story, this documentary story. What are they called when they're podcast? Oh gosh, I'm losing my mind today. But you follow the story the entire time, and it's so interesting. Like if you're into podcasts, you should give Sadie a try because that was great. Another one that Rebecca Soler has read that was not good was The Hazelwood. Now, that was not her fault because I don't think anyone could have saved that piece of crap. But apparently a lot of people disagree with me because it's on the bestseller list all the time. I don't understand. And I'm really into fairies too, and it's not good, guys. It was not good. I don't know. You feel free to try and change my mind with that one. I don't know if you can. That was pretty bad. Okay. So I think I've talked enough about audiobooks. If you have any great suggestions for me to try, please leave me a comment and tell me what I should listen to. As well, if you have any suggestions that I should not try, that I should stay away from because it's a terrible audiobook and go ahead and read the physical book, let me know that too because I'll listen to you. I will. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time on Elise Reads and Speaks.